Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a video all about how to get a flawless looking complexion with your makeup and how not to make it look cakey, and then also how to keep makeup from rubbing off. Specifically for me, I have around my nose and a little bit out here where makeup just rubs off and it doesn't matter what primer I use, it just doesn't like to stay on. So these are going to be my tips and tricks on how I get my makeup to stay on and how I get a flawless complexion and things like that. So let's get started. So first thing first is with primer. Now some people use primer and some people don't use primer. I use primer most of the time. I am going to not use primer for this just because I've washed my face and I just applied like my moisturizer and serum and things like that. So my face is still really tacky from that. It hasn't really sunken in all the way. So if you are in a hurry and you just washed your face, you don't have to use primer if you don't want to, just because your face is already prepped and ready to go. Whereas if you waited 30 minutes to an hour, you could probably go in with a primer because your skincare by then has already really sunk into your skin. So I'm going to go in with my concealer. I'm going to spot conceal. A lot of people like to do this after they do their foundation. I don't. I like to do it before I do my foundation. So I'm using the Fit Me from Maybelline concealer. This is in the shade 10 Ivory. And I'm just going to start hitting the spots where I think I need the coverage. And then also another thing is make sure you don't have anything right on the line of your chin. I tend to get blemishes like right there, but I don't see them and so I miss them. So just really check there because you could have something there that you just can't even see. Take my makeup sponge and I'm just going to start dabbing on the areas where I've applied concealer, and I'm kind of going to go around in a little circle around the area so that way I can kind of blend it in around, not just on the blemish itself. I'm going to go in with our foundation. I'm using the Covergirl Outlast Active Foundation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake this really quick. I'm in the shade 805 Ivory, and I'm just going to apply it to the back of my hand. Now this foundation specifically is pretty runny, so you just have to be careful. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go in with a brush, and then we're going to go in with the sponge. So I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to kind of dip it, and then I'm going to press it on my hand a little bit, just because I don't want too much product. I just want a light layer to start with. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to start pressing this on the foundation and just really blend it in. So one thing that I do to make sure that my foundation stays and doesn't slide off, and a lot of times people use like poreless primers or silicone based primers, and those tend to just kind of slip around your face so they don't actually hold anything in place. I have found that I really like using an eyeshadow primer because eyeshadow primer is meant to make it last, you know, your makeup last, your eyeshadow last. I just use the Milani eyeshadow primer. This is nude, so it looks like this. So it has a little bit of pigment. I just apply this to my nose, and my makeup lasts basically all day. All right, so I'm going to take more off of my hand, and I'm just going to start applying a second layer. Alright, so now I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to take whatever I have left on my hand, just blend everything out. Alright, so the next step that I like to do is I like to take my setting spray. I'm using the Urban Decay All Nighter long lasting setting spray, but you can really use any setting spray you like. I'm just going to spray my sponge a couple times, and I'm also going to spray my face, just to make sure that we have our base set and ready to go for the rest of our makeup. So I'm just going to pat kind of gently, just because your face is wet, so you don't want to pick up any product off. Alright, so before I go in with my concealer, I just wanted to show you guys the complexion of my face right now. So the reason why I do the steps that I do is by going in by one really light layer at a time is because if you pack on too much product at once, you won't be able to distribute it between your whole face. And another thing is maybe even just one light layer is enough for you. So going in with one layer at a time until you build up the coverage you want without it looking cakey at all is really going to help your makeup last longer and look a lot better. The eyeshadow trick works. I promise you it works. It's meant to make your makeup last. And I've used this a couple times, guys. This is a recent find of mine. I was still on the hunt to figure out, like, how do I keep my makeup sliding off my nose? And a lot of people use eyeshadow primer because it works. I'm gonna go in with concealer. I'm using my Mercier Flawless Fusion Concealer. This is a really great concealer. I love it because it's very lightweight, but it's medium coverage and it doesn't crease on me, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to go in with this. I'm just going to put like a couple dots under my eyes. Then I'm going to take my sponge again and I'm just going to start blending this out like you normally do. This step really I don't have to show you guys because there's nothing really special about this step, but I'm just going to show you my whole complexion and how I apply it and then what it looks like when I'm done with it. Alright, so for powders, you usually have the option of either doing a loose powder, which comes in like a container like this, or a pressed powder. Now, I tend to use pressed powders more for the end of my makeup or just to kind of blot through the day and kind of keep everything fresh. But when I'm applying my makeup, I go for a loose powder just because it really helps to make everything last. And I like using it for bake when I do happen to bake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my big fluffy brush and I'm going to dip it into, I have a hair right there. Get out of here. I'm going to dip it into the powder itself and I'm just going to tap it off a little bit. And you can see that all that powder is falling off. I don't need that much powder. That's too much powder. And that's just going to make everything look really dry and cakey. Now take my cap and I'm just going to start swirling it around. You're going to see powder fly everywhere. I'm just going to start swirling it around in the cap because I like doing this because I don't like everything just sitting on top. Because that way when I go onto my face, all that product is going to land in one spot and it's going to be harder to distribute it. So I could distribute it through my brush. That way I get an even application all over my face and I don't get too much powder. That's the thing, is my face, I have combination skin. I'm very oily in my T-zone, but a lot of other places I'm very dry. And so I don't want to, I'm going to also tap this a little bit. I'm going to also, don't want it to look really dry. So, and when I apply it, I'm not just going to kind of swirl it around. I'm going to pat it all over my face because that way it kind of helps so you're not moving the foundation around with it. You're just patting it along your face. And I like to focus on specifically the areas where I'm going to apply other powder products like my bronzer and my blush. So definitely in my cheek area and along my nose because my nose likes to slide off anyway, the foundation off my nose. And so I'm going to make sure to set that really well. And then everywhere else I do powder, but I don't powder as much because I don't want everything to look too dry. Now what I like to do is I like to take a smaller brush and just whatever is left in the cap, I just kind of swirl around and tap off. And I like to go under my eyes with this. And I'm just going to kind of press, make sure everything's laid down on the eyelid as well. I don't want any creasing. And I'm sorry if you hear crying. My baby's screaming outside the door. And I'm going to then just kind of press this under the eye. Not too much because I don't want my under eye area to look too drying, but we do want to set that concealer up. Alright, so that is how I do the application of my foundation and concealer and stuff like that. And so you can see is I have a pretty flawless complexion. My skin is all covered, but it still looks like skin, which I really like. I am getting a little bit of cakiness on my nose here. That's because this foundation is a little drying, I guess. And so by the time I got to my nose with the blender, it was already dried on. So just kind of watch out for that. I wanted to share with you guys because I think it's important. It's kind of a lost, been lost in how to really get a good flawless complexion with your makeup and not look cake on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna go finish the rest of my makeup and go about my day. If you have any questions, or maybe I didn't explain something well enough, just leave in the comments down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a video. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.